Well, the economy is weak. It's not terrible, but it's weak. The bitter irony here has to be for Obama, certainly for people like me, is that if the Republican answer is, let's slash spending, let's have low taxes, that's actually the policy we've been following. It's amazing, actually, especially if you look at the last couple of years, what we've actually seen is sharply falling.
Let me show you. You have a chart in your blog this morning we created. It shows the point you're making.
Yeah, this is real government spending, so it's federal, state, and local combined, deflated, adjusted for population growth and inflation, and it is plunging. It's plunging mostly because of cutbacks at the state and local level, because the aid that they were receiving in the stimulus has run out, but also because unemployment benefits have been expiring because Congress won't, Republicans in Congress won't extend them. So in effect, and by the way, if you extend that chart backwards, there's been nothing like this since the demobilization after the Korean War. We're actually practicing government austerity on a scale that we haven't seen in 60 years. It's not the president's policy. In effect, we've already got the policies that Republicans say they will impose if they take the election, and yet, of course, it may lead to the defeat of this president.
And that's the point Stephanie was making, so bring it back to you. What would Governor Romney do right now, not in the future, right now, to get the economy moving again?
Well, it's not just, as Paul says, tax policy. That's part of it, of course, but it's also spending policy, it's regulatory policy, it's confronting China on their unfair trade practices. It's labor policy, George. The governor has laid out very detailed plans. People can go to mittromney.com and learn about them for themselves. But I think what we really have here...
I know from detailed plans, and there is nothing there.
What we really have here is a deficit in leadership. And this president came into office without any prior experience running anything. He never even ran a corner store. And I think it shows in the way that he's handling the economy.
Can the president do anything now?
He could get Congress to act. The proposals that we've put forward that have been sitting there for 9 months, independent estimates have put those proposals at 1 million jobs. So there are 1 million jobs sitting on that table in Congress right now that they could move on. They need to get off their hands and stop rooting for failure. That's really what's going on right now. And we can impact the economy. Just as Paul was saying, this policy of austerity, because of the refusal of Republicans to act, can change. We can give states the aid that they need to protect those teachers' jobs. We can put construction workers back to work by rebuilding our roads, bridges, and highways.
We
can cut taxes.
How about the Keystone Pipeline? You don't need Congress to do that.
That's a fraction of the jobs that could be created by these proposals.
But pretty important to those who get those jobs.
And we have, extended the Keystone Pipeline at different points in the country. It's currently under review. But that's a fraction of the jobs that we're talking about here. We're talking about 1 million jobs.
On the Reagan thing, if public sector employment had continued to expand the way it did during Reagan's first term, instead of falling by about 600,000 as it has, right there we have something like 1.4 million people working in this country. So that if you actually look at the actual track record of government spending, government employment, Reagan is the Keynesian, and Obama, mostly because of political constraints, although a little bit of lack of conviction on the part of his own people, has been the anti-Keynesian. He's been the one who's been doing what Republicans say is the right answer. If I have a political critique, it's that the administration has been very reluctant to make that case. They've been very hesitant about saying, look, we're trying to do the right thing, but those guys won't let us. I think for fear of seeing...
But isn't he... Well, you got to the point at the end. I think the danger of that argument, you were making part of it right now, is that the more you blame Congress and nothing gets done, the weaker you look.
Well, there's I think they have no alternative. I'm speaking of alternative. What do I know about political strategy, right? But I think this is what they have to do now. They have to say, look, we could have made this better. And Harry Truman, the do-nothing Republicans of Congress.
Can I say, George, just on that point, I do think it's important for Republicans in Congress to come together with the president on some bipartisan jobs legislation. The problem is this president has made it nearly impossible to do that because of the way he demonizes his opposition, his personal attacks against Paul Ryan. I can tell you that when Mitt Romney was governor of Massachusetts, he had to confront a Democratic legislature. Every week, he would invite the Democratic leaders to come into his office. They would discuss agenda items. If they didn't have an agenda to discuss, they would talk about the last movie they saw. But the important thing was to keep those lines of communication open. This president hasn't done that, and I think we're for the worse.
Well, in terms of the governor's Massachusetts record, I think that the Democratic leadership in Massachusetts would probably tell you a different story about Mitt Romney's ability to reach across the aisle. The number of vetoes of the Democratic legislature says it all. On the president working with Republicans, it's been clear since day one that the president was willing to reach out to Republicans and work with them on critical pieces of legislation to get our economy moving. Time and time again, they rebuffed him. Now, whether you're talking about the secret meeting that they had on the day of the president's inaugural to figure out how they were going to defeat him, or Mitch McConnell saying that his #1 goal is to make the president a one-term president, or bringing the economy to the brink of disaster last summer and resulting in a reduction in the nation's credit rating because Speaker Boehner couldn't get his Republicans together to ensure that everybody paid their fair share and ensure that this economy could keep moving.
Let's talk about the plan going forward, because you mentioned the Ryan plan, the demonization, the Ryan plan in your words. Is Governor Romney saying that is going to be his blueprint for the budget going forward?
Well, at least he has a blueprint. The president hasn't produced a budget, or at least the budget he did produce, or the outline of the budget he produced, was rejected unanimously in both branches. Look, we need to restrain growth in government spending. If we're concerned about what's happening in Europe, if we're concerned about Greece, if we're concerned about Spain, then we ought to rein in our spending now and get our debt and deficit down, or else we'll head down the same path as
George,
Europe.
Can I just say something here? You know, that all sounds great, but the governor has not put out any details on how he is going to achieve that. The details that he has put out, a $5 trillion tax cut for millionaires and billionaires, that he's not telling us how he's going to pay for it. So he's either blowing up the deficit or he's raising taxes on the middle class. He's going to deregulate Wall Street, which we know how that turns out. We're going to go back to risky financial deals that crashed our economy. And on China, you know, we've been hearing this blustering on China for quite a while now. What exactly is the governor going to do that's not already
then I want to bring in George Will.
I'll say he'll do what this president has failed to do on China, which is to declare that China is a currency manipulator. Look, we're all in favor of free trade. In fact, we don't think this president has done enough to reinvigorate trade talks with our friends. But China is robbing us blind. They're stealing.
I just need to weigh in. I was very much for that. I've been demanding that we declare, but the window for that has passed. Right now, the Chinese economy is tanking. So if you were thinking you were going to get a big boost out of beating up on the Chinese now, 2 years ago, I thought was really a good time to do that. But my God, now that is totally out of date.
And how do you explain the governor's comment that when the president did take action, enforcement action against the Chinese when they are dumping tires in this economy, that the governor called that protectionism?
Well, the governor has promised that he would confront China in ways that this administration has not. The president has the power right now through his Treasury Department. He doesn't need Congress to act to declare China a currency manipulator. They are playing fast and loose, giving themselves an unfair advantage, and that's hurting American jobs.
George Will.
The president has had a lot of discretion and used it vigorously, not just with Solyndra that Mr. Romney went out to dramatize this week, but this week the Wall Street Journal had a long article on $1,260 million invested in car batteries for electric cars. Now, there's a big supply of the batteries, there's a small supply of the cars, complete mismatch, and lots of money lost. On another matter, I didn't hear a robust answer to George's question. Where does the governor stand, Governor Romney, on the Ryan plan? Does he endorse it?
Oh, he's for the Ryan plan. He believes it goes in the right direction. The governor has also put forward a plan to reduce spending by $500 billion by the year 2016. In fact, he's put details on the table about how exactly he would achieve that. So to say he doesn't have a plan to restrain government spending is just not true.
Can I say the Ryan plan, and I guess this is what counts as a personal attack, but it isn't. It's not an attack on the person, it's an attack on the plan. The plan's fraud. The plan is a big bunch of tax cuts, some specified spending cuts basically for poor people, and then a huge magic asterisk, which is supposed to turn into a deficit reduction plan. But in fact, if you look what's actually in it, it's a deficit increasing plan. And so to say that, just tell the truth, that there is really no plan there, neither from Ryan nor from Governor Romney, is just the truth. That's not, if that's being harsh and partisan, gosh, then I guess the truth is anti-bipartisanship.
So may I ask you, Paul, do you prefer the president's plan?
Oh yeah, I mean the president, at least it's not, you know, I don't approve of everything, but there are no gigantic mystery numbers in his stuff. We do know what he's talking about. His numbers are you know, all economic forecasts are wrong, but his are not insane. These are just imaginary.